What's going on, everybody? I'd like to welcome you to another JavaScript and jQuery tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about expressions and operators. Now, before we talk about expressions, I want you to think way back to when you were in the third grade, like 4 years ago, when you were first learning how to do this thing called multiplication. You might not have realized it, but you were actually doing an expression. An expression evaluates multiple values down to a single value. For example, 3 times 3 equals 9. 2 plus 2 equals 4. We have 2 or more values, and then after we equate them, you have one value after that. Broadly speaking, there are two types of expressions. The first type just assigns a value to a variable. So these are going to be most of the variables that we have encountered up until now. We have our variable, we assign that variable with a name, and then we give that name a particular value. For example, if I had a variable called name, it would be equal to Nick. It's a 1-for-1 ratio. The second type of expression is one that utilizes 2 or more values to return a single value. So these are going to be more of the mathematical equations that I was talking about. 3 times 2 is equal to 6. Area equals length times width, right? You have multiple values, 2 or more, and then after you do the actual mathematical equation, you have one value that all of those values are now equal to. Now, how do we actually do these expressions? Well, we're going to use these things that are actually called operators. And expressions rely heavily on these operators. They allow programmers to create a single value from one or more values, right? And there are tons of operators out there. The main ones that you're going to typically use are going to be the mathematical operators if you're looking at the screen right now. So we have the addition operator, and this is no different from the addition operator that you've used your entire life. This is going to add one value to another value. We also have subtraction, you have division, multiplication, and then we get down to this weird looking thing that's called increment. Looks kind of like an addition sign, however the addition sign has another addition sign as a partner. Please do not be frightened. Increment does nothing more than adds one value to a current number. For example, if I had the number 3 and I wanted to increment, then I would just add 1 to that number 3 and I would have 4. And then if I were to continue the process, I would have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on up to infinity. Then we go down to the next one, which is called decrement. And it looks just like the opposite of increment, only it utilizes two subtraction operators. And this just subtracts 1 from the current number. So 10 minus 9 minus 10 minus 1 equals 9, 9 minus 1 equals 8, so on and so forth to infinity. And then we have this weird looking thing called modulus. We've never used percent signs in math ever. You've probably never seen this before. This is pretty cool because it gives us the remainder as a result of dividing two numbers that don't equally go into one another. For example, if I divide 10 by 3, then yes, 3 does go into 10 3 times. However, I have a result of 1. And modulus is going to provide us with that remainder. So whenever we utilize expressions and operators within our code, it's going to follow the same properties that you might have learned once again back in grade school. It's called order of operations. Okay, and it's going to pretty much carry out your code in the way that order of operations does. So it's going to first look at everything that's within parentheses, and then after that it's going to look at multiplication, division, and then it's going to go to addition and subtraction, right? So think order of operations as I just said. Different operators will be resulted before others. Once again, multiplication and division are always performed before addition and subtraction, okay? So you're Gonna want to keep this in mind because this can alter the number that you expect to see once you print your result to the screen. So let's go on ahead and try it out. So we're gonna hop over into our text editor, and what you're taking a look at right now are the files for class number 7. You should have the HTML document up and also a blank JavaScript document. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is remember, expressions are nothing more than variables that pass through 2 or more values, and then they equal down to one particular value. So I'll start with bar, and the first one that we're going to create is cost. So we're going to take the same example as we did in some previous videos. We have an art store, and we have the Mona Lisa painting in there, and all we want to do now is just provide that painting with a cost, a quantity, a subtotal, shipping and handling, and then at the end we're going to finalize our total after taking into account those operators. Okay, so var cost, we're going to say that the cost of the painting is $10,000. Next we have var quantity. And let's say we decided to purchase 5 of these paintings. Let's say we're pretty rich right now. The next variable that we want to create is our subtotal. So what's our subtotal going to be? Yes, theoretically in a real world it's going to be 10,000 times 5, which equals 50,000. But what if these numbers change throughout our code? Okay, we don't want to have to go through our JavaScript and update every single place where 10,000 as a cost and 5 as a quantity are located. All we specifically want to do is pass through our cost variable and also our quantity variable. So now we're not having to do that. It's going to automatically update our subtotal, and in this case we only have to update one piece of our code one time, or at least a few number of times. So our subtotal is going to be equal to our cost times our quantity variable. Next, we need to provide a value for our shipping and handling variable. So we're just going to call this shipping, handling. And let's say shipping and handling is equal to $12.99. That's how much it costs. And last but not least, we need to calculate our total. So our total is going to be subtotal plus shipping and handling. For our total equals subtotal plus shipping and handling. Great. That is all that you do. There is nothing more to expressions than creating variables utilizing math and the operators of math that we've seen our entire life. But now we have to once again find a way to connect these values to the IDs and elements within our HTML document. So if you can see on the left side, we have an element for cost, quantity, subtotal, shipping and handling. And then if we jump down, we also have one for the total cost to purchase all of those paintings. All we're going to do right now is we're going to take the same exact methodology as we did in our previous videos, and we're going to connect these variables that we just created to these elements. So to do that, once again, we create another variable, and we call this variable L, which is short for element. And since we're going to be connecting cost, we'll just call it L cost. Element cost is equal to the document object dot get element by ID method, and the ID is going to be cost. Then after that, we want to update the text content within this element to show the cost of the painting, which is equal to $10,000. So to do that, we just call our cost variable we get our text content property, and then we just provide it with the value that we want to update. So we say cost, semicolon, space, $, plus our cost variable. And all we did right here is, if you can't think back, maybe you forgot, the reason why we did this is because we want this value to update like this. Cost, semicolon, 10,000. Okay. And now, as you can see, we're using our addition sign. However, we're not using our addition sign as a mathematical operator in this case. Okay. We're using it for concatenation. And concatenation only comes into play whenever we use string values and variables. Okay. So that's going to be very important whenever it comes down to mixing numbers and other strings together, is that you can't add a number to text. Okay. I can't add a number to a word. I can't add a number to a sentence. However, I can push these two values together and concatenate them. That's going to be really important throughout your programming life as well. Okay. So next we have to do this for our quantity variable. And once again, since we're going to connect it to the quantity element, we have L quantity is equal to document dot get element by ID. And the ID of that element is quantity. And then we just call the property that we want to update. So L quantity dot text content is equal to quantity concatenate our quantity variable. So when we load our HTML page, it should look like this. So taking it on down, we're going to do the same thing for subtotal. If your question is, Nick, are we going to have to do this every single time we want to add our JavaScript to our HTML? Short answer is yes. Will it be easier to do this as time progresses? Short answer is yes. Are we going to learn how to do that right now? Short answer is nah. Okay. Subtotal text content. $, plus our subtotal variable. Next we have shipping and handling. Pretty sure everybody might have arthritis after this, but bear with me. I'll send you all an Amazon gift card to purchase some medication for it. Not really. Shipping and handling. L shipping and handling dot text content. Almost there, guys. Almost there. Plus our shipping and handling variable. And then last but not least, we have total. Equals document dot get element by ID. That element is total. we're going to call the property. Okay, and let's say total plus our total variable. Finally, we are done with that part. One more thing I want to show you before we actually run this code, because I'm pretty sure some of you might be asking, Nick, do we have to create a variable for this document object with its method and its property? Short answer is yes. Why? Because it's best practice. Remember, there are going to be times in which we have to refer to this particular object and method throughout this one JavaScript document. And it's going to be easier to refer to it one time rather than having to type that entire object, .method, and pass through the parameter and call the property every single time. That gets very strenuous, tiring, and I'm really trying to prevent you guys from getting arthritis. I promise. That is not my goal of these tutorials. But if you want to do it that way, rather than creating the variable that's called lcost, we can simply just call our document object, do the get element by ID method, pass through the ID, call the property, which is going to be get text content, or just text content rather. Then we can say is equal to the cost plus cost. Okay, so this is the exact same as this. Okay, they are no different. But remember, variables are meant to make your code easier to read. They're used to make your code easier to do. And it's a lot less documentation that you have to do throughout your program. So going ahead and use variables to their full extent. Variables are best practice in this case. However, in the case of our HTML document, we have connected all of the variables from our JavaScript. Last but not least, we have to be sure that our script is being referenced within our HTML document. And if it is, great. As you can see, mine is. If not, all we do is open up a script tag. The source is going to be that JavaScript document. And then we close it. We save it. And now, folks, we are finally ready to run it and see what it looks like. So let's take a look and see. Let's see if everything worked out, and hopefully it did. Okay, so it looks like at this point in time, only the cost is showing. Let's see what's going on within our code to see if we can figure out how to get all of the rest of these particular IDs to show. So I have quantity over here. I have my quantity ID. Here's why, because I misspelled quantity. Let's save it. Okay, so now the quantity shows. Now the shipping and handling shows. And it looks like something else is missing. Oh, nope, I got my total. Let's see why the subtotal isn't showing at this point in time. So L subtotal. Okay. So I have my subtotal ID. It's connecting to my subtotal variable. Let me try to type this one over again so we can figure out what's going on. L subtotal is equal to document dot get element by ID. If yours worked, great. Bear with me, folks. Text content. Plus subtotal. Subtotal is going to equal to cost times our quantity. There we go. All right. So this is exactly what we want. This is how your HTML document should look whenever you run it. So as you can see, we have our cost, we have our quantity, and then our subtotal gets automatically calculated. So 10,000 times 5 equals 50,000. Then we have our shipping and handling to take into account. And finally, down here at the bottom, we have our total amount that we will need to pay. $50,000 for 5 Mona Lisa paintings. Sounds a bit outrageous to me. If you ask me, I've got some paintings that I did way back when I was 7 that are hanging on my mom's refrigerator exhibit in the kitchen. Feel free to check them out anytime around Christmas. I'll make you one. Just let me know offline. But in that case, this is all I have. We're going to learn a bit more about this checkout button that I've put within our document, but we can also do a lot of things within our JavaScript that will once again update that content and manipulate the content within our HTML as time progresses, and we can do that with buttons. So we're going to learn about that a little bit later. As always, you guys have homework. I skipped that in the last video, but just for the sake of this one, I want you to create a few mathematical expressions that utilize the orders of operation. The goal is to make yourself more comfortable with mathematics and coding. See if you can attempt to display the result of your mathematical expression within your HTML document as we just did. And please feel free to use my HTML as a reference. If you want to change the entire thing, great. Okay, everything you need is here. You have your CSS document, you have the HTML. This is why I've created this for you guys to use it. If you all have questions, feel free to drop it in the forum. As far as everything else goes, I will see you guys in our next video. This is Nick, over and out.